Hello and welcome to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show on Vialle MX. We've just had the 16th round of the FIM Motocross World Championship, the historic circuit of Uddevalla in Sweden, and that packed a little bit of flair this weekend, not only because the historic layout was done away with in favour of a fairly unpopular improvement, but we also had one of the most, what would you say, historic, no, emotional, maybe, rides in the history of the series with Isak Gifting in the second moto. As everyone would have seen on social media, he's turned into somewhat of a cult hero, thanks to brilliant showing on home soil. But we'll get into that and so much more. There's a lot to unpack from Sweden, and I'm excited to do it with my co-host. He's here every week, through thick and thin, busy periods or not. It's Adam Wheeler from the Paddock Pass podcast. How's it going?
Hello, Lewis. It's good. In the middle of a back-to-back stint for MotoGP, which is pretty tough. But sequence of races is going like that, really, for the foreseeable. But yeah, it was good to see Sweden, watch it rather, while also working at the Red Bull Ring for the Grand Prix of Austria last weekend. And like you say, I want to thank personally Isak Gifting for creating a spectacle, because it was emotional, it was exciting. Otherwise, I think it would have been a bit drab. And also, do you think really Uddevalla changed that much? From what I could see through the screen, there was a couple of alterations to the layout, which, you know, the club there are really proactive and extremely passionate and care a lot about the event and tend to sort of mix things up when they can. But I didn't think it was a huge overhaul, or I was expecting more, let's say.
I don't know. Could you get a bigger overhaul? I guess you could move the start, but like I don't know how much more you could do.
No, yeah, exactly. So I didn't think it was any great shakes.
Okay, well, I felt like it was a drastic step in the incorrect direction, and for it to take that much of a move, in my opinion, it must have been fairly drastic. It looked like a Mickey Mouse circuit. I'd imagine that phrase hasn't made its way to America, and I don't really know what it means, but in England, when you describe something as being very Mickey Mouse, it means like small and pokey, and I don't know.
Well, also a bit of a joke, a bit funny.
Yeah. Just it honestly reminded me of tracks that I grew up racing on. And it's sad because maybe I look at it through rose-coloured glasses because it was the Coppins and Townley era, and it was so brilliant. It was 2005 after all. But the track layout in the 2000s was far superior to not only this edition, but the previous one as well, where you do the 180 out of turn 1 and then drop down into turn 2. That drop-off into turn 2 was historic, I felt like. It was a defining feature. It was what Uddevalla stood for. And now I feel like it is just another circuit without that defining characteristic.
Uddevalla's problem is the terrain, but also just the compact sort of site. It's wedged between two sort of rocky, these shallow hills. And the club can't really extend the track much more. And that means it's quite narrow, and it ultimately ends up being one line. Riders tried two different lines, but passing is awkward. And one is obviously faster and better and clearer. So that means where riders start tends to mean where they finish. And I think, Uddevalla is one of the tracks on the calendar you could probably hoist to the top of the pole in terms of the importance of starts, because if you don't make it, kind of like lock it in Czech Republic to a degree, if you don't make it, then say goodnight. And I think that's probably best exemplified in the case of Lucas Coenen. Maybe we can talk about him in a moment. But yeah, you could see, I think, in the MXGP race starts how fired up Romain Febvre was. I mean, I read that the Frenchman took his first 60-point haul. It seems pretty mad to me that he hasn't gone 1-1-1, across a GP before. But that was a pretty stunning performance, and I think it was all born out of just that extra energy he showed out of the gate.
Well, even more surprising, Romain Febvre hasn't gone 1-1 in the motos since round 13 of 2019. Which was
Wow, really?
I believe, yeah.
That was his last 1-1.
To be honest, I didn't believe it was that long ago, but I had a suspicion that it has been a while. And that almost is to the detriment of the 2025 MXGP series, I think, because that shines a light. This is maybe far too critical. This shines a light on the fact that we did lose Herlings, we did lose Geyser, we did lose Prado, and perhaps the eventual champion, whoever it is going to be, is more the, hey, who's next in line to take over, rather than the best rider that MXGP has to offer, because that stat says that Febvre has not been the best for X many years, and that shines a harsh light on what Lucas Coenen has done as well, no?
Yeah, but then, yes, that's one way of classifying it with an asterisk, but I don't think that's fair, is it? Because the best is usually the guy who also stays fit. And Febvre has proved himself to be a GP winner or a podium guy for a decade. So it's, I don't think that should be dismissed out of hand. So, yeah, okay, there are some big hitters missing in terms of Grand Prix wins, and 2021 was just that really freaky season where everybody was fit and it went all the way to the end. But this is a different kind of season, and, it's been about Febvre keeping fit. Let's not forget it was maybe 8 years ago where Febvre crashed in Sweden, broke his femur, and, that was the end of quite a strong season for him with Yamaha. Also, was that the end of his Yamaha career, I think?
And so
that
in
season
turn kind of ruined his first year with Kawasaki as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard not to think of Jorge Prado when you're looking at how well Febvre is riding that Kawasaki. Also worth pointing out, there's mitigating factors everywhere. Romain's been on the bike for 5 years. He's kind of helped develop the prototype. So if there's somebody who's going to be fully flowing with the characteristics of the KX450F, then it's the Frenchman.
I almost want to get your thoughts on Prado, but maybe we'll stay away from that until the end of the podcast, because we did touch on that a couple of weeks ago, and it's very much changed since then. So I think it would be interesting for us to
very quickly, because I've been listening to your your appearances sort of on Pulp MX and obviously Steve's race review shows. It did seem like Jorge had made a step around for Ironman, but then of course Uddevalla was a regression, and we know Jorge quite well. He's not a rider that's going to ride over the limit. He too broke a femur. He's picked up injuries, even though he's still quite young, and he's not going to hang it out there. And it's up to him and Kawasaki, or him and whatever race team he's representing, to find the happy medium where he can perform. And I think the big question now is, Lewis, does he actually get on a KTM? What kind of deal does he have, and what kind of future does he have? There are things I think that will emerge in the coming weeks.
I think he gets on a KTM, and I think it's maybe even sooner rather than later. If you told me that Jorge Prado races the Motocross of Nations on a KTM, I'm not surprised in the slightest. If you tell me that Jorge Prado starts the SMX playoffs on a KTM, I'm not even surprised at that. One thing I am certain about is he'll be on a Kawasaki this weekend. After that, all bets are off. But if he does go back to KTM, brilliant in a sense, because it reignites this wonderful partnership that has given the sport so much. But it can never quite be the same, because he did bash them quite publicly, and it now does come a bit tarnished based on the fact that Prado's proven to not be invincible, and I think that both sides would have chips on their shoulders to a degree. And I just don't think that the magic... And to be honest, was it magical even before he left? I don't think so. He was critical of Carli. He was critical of Austria. He was critical of pretty much every element of KTM. I can't think of one part of KTM that he was like, I love this. So...
I mean, now I think he would... If he gets in orange again, then it's just going to be like another hired gun. Whereas before, he was very much part of, he was a piece of furniture in the house. I mean, he was KTM through and through since he'd been like 12 years old. He had his grievances with the factory. I mean, you sign those long-term deals on a lower rate for access to the best team and the best equipment, then, you have that compromise. And, he jumped out of Red Bull. He was a Red Bull athlete all the way. Okay, he's got a big fat Fox contract, but, going back into that structure now, I think there's going to be very kind of little leeway. I mean, he's going to have to deliver. Whereas before, I think there was probably more of a relationship to get shit worked out and done. And there's so much hindsight and so much humble pie involved in this arrangement. If he goes to KTM again, it's just making the the margin for error, razor thin. I mean, he's really got to sort of smash it out the park. And even then, Lewis, let's assume he wins, or gets on Supercross podiums or win motocross races. Is he happy to be labelled as just a guy who could only do it on Austrian machinery? That's another thing, because like it or not, racers at some point do start to think about their legacy and what they've done with their career. And I think Jorge jumping out of Kawasaki early, unless he's in a tough place mentally, which I don't think people should also, not disregard quickly, because it's quite a serious thing and careers are short. You could say, suck it up, Jorge, and race the thing, pin it. Don't drop off your lap times, but then he gets something wrong and he's suddenly nursing 2 broken shoulders. So yeah, there's many different sort of layers.
It is funny, like, if first of all, this is always now going to be a reference point for the sport and a reference point or a cautionary tale for riders in years to come, because it can always be pointed to as like, are you sure you want to make that team move? Remember, it can go badly, see Prado. But also to put a different lens on it, imagine if Jeffrey Hurlings allegedly went to Honda and then returned to KTM a year later. Like, even if you imagine that scenario without having any of the facts and it being a pie in the sky idea, it does make you go, oh, that's not, oh, really? You'd go back? It isn't, you're meant to always move forward, never look back. And this is very much tail between the legs territory.
Yeah, and also it depends on your personal viewpoint for loyalty. Do you applaud, or do you think it's it's not a strong attribute to be a one team and one brand your whole career? I mean, should Hurlings be praised for jumping out of his comfort zone and trying something different, and also boosting his profile in his career and sort of in the twilight stages? Or is he mad? Is it a huge risk that's not going to pay off and he limps away into sort of a very meek end to his career? That's something, that only comes afterwards. But goodness, I mean, these decisions shouldn't be made lightly, and they shouldn't be made emotionally. If I had to sort of offer some sort of counsel, but I mean, for us as sort of journalists and media, I mean, we've done 10 minutes on this podcast already talking about this. It's pretty gripping stuff.
It really is. We don't get stories like this at all. I'm trying to think of an MXGP equivalent over the years, and I can't.
Well, they're coming up this year.
But yeah, true. Yeah, and it's what I mean. It's
allegedly.
Allegedly, we don't know. No one knows. It really makes you look at these scenarios that are going to play out with a different lens, because we now have proof of concept that it can really go horrifically, when really badly. I think no one would have ever dreamt that a top rider could move teams and it could go this badly. I don't think anyone would have ever really entertained that.
Stefan Everts to Husqvarna, if we really want to wind back the clock. It wasn't until he sort of got back on Japanese machinery with Yamaha that he managed to sort of reignite his career. That's sort of one example that springs to mind. But I'll tell you what, let's jump back onto Scandinavia. I've got 2 questions for you. So which is the most editorially prominent aspect of this Grand Prix? Is it the MXGP title race that is now taken one large swing, or is it Isak Gifting and just that dream scenario of a rider going hell for leather at his home GP, sending everybody crazy for about 30 minutes and just sort of like making this emotional impact that will probably define one of the highlights of the 2025 season?
I think it's Gifting purely because with the MXGP title fight, there was always a possibility that it was going to go this way. Because with any title fight, you're kind of teetering on the edge of, yes, this could be great, but also one bad round, one crash, one injury, and this goes away. And that's kind of where we've ended up now. We'll talk about it more, but I really do not believe that Lucas Coenen wins this title unless Febvre gets injured now. There's just no way in my mind. Okay. No? Is that too drastic? 41 points.
Yeah. I mean, what was it going in? 10?
9.
Something like that. 9. Yeah, I mean, that. Okay, it is a big pendulum swipe towards one direction. But yeah, I still think 41 is nothing. Also, if I was Simon Längenfelder, I'll be pretty pleased with how the Swedish GP went, but also quite cautious as well. It's just too many points left yet, Lewis. And also heading back into the sand, Febvre is going to have to sort of have a bit of a a big reality check, or he's going to have to get his head on straight for Arnhem, because there's every possibility that Coenen's going to produce like a very ferocious display of speed to try and get some of those points back, and Romain's going to have to play the sensible game, a little bit like he did in Lommel in the second moto, and just think, okay, if Lucas is going to be both jets full gas, then I just have to sort of hang around second and limit the damage. But my other question for you, very quickly, is you kind of used to sing the praises of the Swedish GP. I know it was one of your favorites, but with the track and the way it's been, and the fact that you look at the lap charts of the motos and where riders have started or ended the first lap, they tend to finish. I do wonder if we're sort of it's kind of overrated, or you're overrating it.
Sacre bleu.
That's French.
Was that the correct use of it?
It's not, yes, but then we're talking about Sweden.
I know, but I just felt like that was quite a good reaction. I mean, yes. For whatever reason, Uddevalla clearly made an impression on me as a child, because for whatever reason, it does exist in this nostalgic... I don't know why, because I don't look at Tuchenthal that way, and I don't look at whatever else, but maybe it was Coppins going 1-1 in 2005, I don't know. Maybe it's because Carli in 2012 had a double DNF there. Maybe these defining moments in each championship left a lasting impression on me, and now I can't let it go. I don't know why, because if you break it down, perhaps I shouldn't look at Sweden so fondly. Maybe it is because I went there, and the first GP I ever did there, it was scorching hot, and it felt like a brilliant experience, an enjoyable time all round. Maybe if the first time I went there it was raining, I would have been like, this is shit, and I would have forgotten about it. I don't know, but I don't believe you can get rid of it, because its characteristics are brilliant for the series, between the rock face and the setting that creates, which is unique to any track in the world. I like that. That's no justification for keeping it on the calendar, of course, but I think that what it lacks in racing possibility, it makes up for in credibility.
There's also the fact that, if it does test the starting prowess of bikes and riders, then that's not a bad thing as well. Teams know they're going to have to get their shit together, because if you're lacking out of the gate, then you're not going to figure for the podium battle. That's also another demand, I guess.
Well, let's not forget, in the mid-2010s, we've referenced this with Tuchenthal, but it was Tuchenthal and Uddevalla that were left off of the calendars in a TBA position, simply because Infront, or Youthstream at the time, wanted both promoters to kind of get their acts together and improve the tracks and safety and conditions and whatnot. And I would argue that neither has really taken a drastic step from where they were. I feel like it was almost a false threat. Really?
No, I mean, Tuchenthal used to be just this relentless speed bowl. The preparation was crap. Jump landings were being watered. There was a real kind of, not like a laziness, but almost like a degree of neglect for the track preparation. I think that's got much better in recent years, as good as it could potentially be at a place like that. And Sweden as well, like I mentioned earlier, that the guys do react. Maybe there was a couple of years where they just didn't have the resources to change things around. But the last editions of the Grand Prix I've been to in the last 5 to 6 years, up until sort of the pandemic, I think the fans have come back. There was a kind of stage with the Swedish GP where the crowds are very sparse. Maybe it has something to do with more Scandinavian riders popping up. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Swedish motorsport fan and they don't have any Formula One, they don't have any MotoGP, there's nothing much going on there in terms of top flight World Championship racing, then, if you go along and you see Isak Gifting, giving it full beans, and that wasn't like the first time that he's really excelled on home turf, because even in MX2 he was trying absolutely everything possible to figure in the leading positions, then you're going to go back the next year.
We will get to Gifting in about 2 minutes, but first let's do the MXGP title fight quickly. So for those that haven't followed it so closely, Febvre went 1-1-1 for the first time this season and first time ever in that case. Jeffrey Herlings was second overall with 2-2 scores, and then Calvin Vlanderen was third with a third and a fourth. His third podium of the season, second in succession, so great for him. And down in 8th overall was Lucas Coenen, who went 7-12 and had horrific starts and offered little in the way of an explanation in KTM's press release and on social media. On social media, he simply put that it's time to hunt a frog emoji, which fairly aggressive, I would argue. And then he posted a motivational quote about showing people who you are and whatever else. I asked a few people if there was a secret injury, because realistically, it was that bad where your mind immediately goes, there has to be more at play here. And everyone said if there was a secret injury, he kept it secret even from the team, and it's a super secret one. I don't know. Everyone has bad results. The results aren't so surprising. It's more so the fact that he started last, essentially, each time. Like, what reason would there be for that, other than he just melted?
Well, I mean, he's won the last 3 GPs in a row, and he's had 10 consecutive podiums. So that makes this 7-12 even more random. I think you can forgive a bad start in the first moto. I mean, Sweden does have this kind of unusual cambered, very fast left-hand turn as an opener. And, you know, riding back to 7th was not great, but by no means a disaster. But then it was a very strange crash, you know, on the 3rd turn of the second moto, which, you know, basically bookended the day as you know, a big season blip. I mean, he didn't offer much in the way of feedback afterwards. And sometimes you're reminded that Lucas is only 18 years old by some of the stuff he says. You know, he can be quite gripey about rivals or actions or some racecraft or gamesmanship on the track. But yeah, Lewis, I don't think this is over by any means. Like I say, if there's anyone more fired up for Arnhem this weekend, then I'll be surprised to see it. Even sort of like Jeffrey Herlings, who got back on the podium. You know, a pretty decent performance. And Herlings had the starts that, you know, Koenen's usually been delivering this year. But goodness, it's like I say, it's far from over. But this was a big weekend for Febvre.
Originally, I entertained the idea that it could be because Jeffrey and Geyser are now back, and maybe that added an element of pressure that just he couldn't cope with, because there was a very real possibility of Tim and Jeffrey getting between the two one way or another, either helping or hurting. But I don't think it is that, because Lucas has battled Jeffrey all year for the most part, and Tim at the start, so that would be odd. Then my favourite theory that I have is that he put so much emphasis on Lommel and not repeating the mistakes from last year, winning at home, capitalising on his sand skills, that maybe winning there was almost such a relief that he took his eye off the ball of what was coming after Lommel, that being Sweden. And there we saw it kind of all fall apart, because maybe, I don't know, I'm not articulating it correctly, but I think there can be instances where you focus so much on one thing that you completely neglect the following thing, and then you kind of aren't mentally switched on or ready for the challenge.
Also, I mean, Herlings liked to use the phrase over and over, the big boys. You know, riding in MXGP in the Premier class was battling the big boys. And this is like Lucas's first go at it. And it's a long season. He had the injury coming in and managed that quite well in Argentina. But, you know, there are going to be emotional highs and lows, Lewis. I don't think you're off track there. But then also I think the ball of momentum around Lucas Koenen and the fact that he could win the championship has just been building. I'm not saying it's necessarily adding much pressure at this stage, because we still have, 4 Grand Prix to go after this? 3? 4?
4.
Turkey, China, 4. So Arnhem, Turkey, China, Australia. So you still, you know, this is not like we're getting to sort of 2 or 3 rounds to go and you really are counting the points. I think Febvre just kind of looked at the weekend and thought, I'm good at Sweden. I know what it's about. I know how it feels on a 450. I know I need to get starts. And that was just extra momentum. Okay, Gifting made a sort of, you know, a little bit of a cameo appearance in the second moto. But I think for the championship, I mean, I've been sort of pinning my colours to Romain most of the season just based on that extra experience. That could really be telling. it would be shocking if Lucas loses this by just a couple of points, because then, he's going to probably have Sweden seared into his brain and memory for a good couple of years.
To the point of Febvre's experience, I do want to make it abundantly clear. Ridiculously impressive for Febvre to figure out his starts, go 1-1-1, essentially come in clutch in Sweden. That was a championship performance if I've ever seen one. The qualifying race, he absolutely dominated, and not because he was riding over his head, he just looked to be that superior. And it's not like, okay, Febvre's great on the hard pack, he's great on every surface, but I don't think there's anything about Sweden that makes you go, well, it was Sweden, of course Romain did that. So yeah, full props to him. And it will be very interesting to see how Lucas Coenen now handles the pressure of this at somewhat of a home GP.
Yeah, and give some credit also to the Ice One team, because Febvre's starts were disastrous in Finland. And he was his demeanor was the complete opposite of Sweden, where he was quite happy and celebratory. In Finland, he was pissed off, frustrated, just couldn't get out of the gate at all. So whatever they've done after that Grand Prix has really sort of elevated him back to a position where the red is a little bit deeper in the red plate.
Yes, without doubt. I like that. Very poetic. So you stay tuned, because I will definitely repeat that on the next podcast, and hope that everyone forgets where they heard it first. Thank you, of course, to Polosport and Prox for their support of this podcast. We literally couldn't do it without them. And now let's turn over all of the way down to, I believe, 22nd overall? 22nd overall, with 4 points on the day, but somehow the star of the Grand Prix of Sweden, and a rider who uses Polosport. Polosport really riding the wave of Isak Gifting's success on home turf, and you can ride a similar wave if you head to polosport.com and see all that they have available for your motorcycle or bicycle even, or street bike. There's a plethora of options at polosport.com, most of which will probably surprise you. Maybe you aren't fully aware of what they have to offer. But what you will be aware of is the APT unbreakable levers. Yes, snapping levers, that's weak and outdated. Polosport's APT unbreakable levers bend on impact, bend back to their original shape, and let you keep riding. With a stainless steel core built for war, they are rock solid strong and designed to match the OEM levers, shape and specs. Polosport's APT unbreakable levers stand up to every single challenge, and Isak Gifting certainly put his Polosport products through the ringer in Sweden. Now, I have a fairly pessimistic view of this. First of all, before we get to that, okay, let's stop.
How can you be pessimistic about this?
Okay, the pessimistic is coming in a minute. First of all, what a performance. That was unbelievable. If there's one rider who can put his heart on his sleeve and show something like that, it's Gifting. He's proven it time and time again that he's not scared, or he's not one to cower away from high-profile situations or read the back of jerseys or whatever you want to call it. But that was, I think, the first moto was more of what I expected, starting up front and then kind of battling around and trying to survive. But the second moto flew in the face of that. That was sitting back and kind of being like, no, I'm better than these guys. I can go forward, which makes it all the more impressive and surprising and whatever other superlatives you want to use. It was just phenomenal. I've used the reference millions of times on this podcast. Reminded me of Coenen at Matchams in 2005. What other examples are there of home GP heroes? I mean, Billy Mackenzie at the Isle of Wight in 2005, but he had already won a moto at Belpuge that season, so
yes,
whatever. Yeah. And none was a factory rider, but pre-Matchams he hadn't finished higher than 7th, so that moto win was fairly out of nowhere.
There's a couple, Jonathan Barragan and Belpuge in 08 in the Premier Class. I'd say Ken Roxon as a 15-year-old on a Suzuki at Tuchental. I mean, people expected him and hoped he would do well, but to go and win, especially his first career GP win, was something else. Goodness.
There's just none as quite, like, all of those riders we've mentioned, they could have won, sure. I don't think anyone would have said that Isak Gifting could have won, and ultimately he didn't. But let's talk about it as if it was a win, because let's be honest, he got there. He got to as close as he possibly could. It was going to happen.
I mean, Isak was a bright prospect in MX2. Always seemed to get injured, but this has been the best season of his career without a doubt, purely because of the equipment he's using and the opposition he's facing. And like you say, Lewis, the second moto was just a little bit out of the ordinary because it was full attack mode. I think just part of his brain said, "Listen, I'm just going to pin this thing and I'm going to see where it takes me." And ultimately, it took him into the gravel or into the ground. It was a real shame. But I mean, it was fantastic hearing like the audio, from the crowd behind Paul Malin's commentary. I mean, that's the sort of sporting, this tasty sporting material that you live for, isn't it? I mean, that's great. I mean, we as much as you can admire riders like Prado, Hurlings, Geiger, whatever, for the excellence they bring to their craft, you just want that underdog feeling now and again. And Gifting also, I think, has put the factory Yamahas well into shade this year for his starting capability, and that was something that really stood him in good stead, as we mentioned, on a track like this. There was some footage there of the MXGP riders, especially, where I just thought the track is so rough and so rutted. They were like landing into sort of these, you used the word earlier, plethora of ruts. I was just thinking it's as sketchy as fuck, and it really sort of made me want to watch from my fingers. I mean, also you can see how it will catch out really experienced riders like Jeremy Sewer. He was pitched off the Ducati and lucky to escape injury. And we've seen some big injuries, some big crashes as well. Boz Jonas can testify to that at Uddevalla in the past. And I just think, Isak just detached the brain and went for it and created a small memory. It's such a shame that he lost it, on a part of the track where I think you'd even see the finish line, It's, I don't know, like you said, poetic.
Imagine though, I'd imagine he probably couldn't even see. I'd imagine his eyes were starting to tear up and like just the emotion of the occasion was too much at that moment. I'd imagine that was why he crashed. Although he has not alluded to it anywhere, and no one has, so it can't have happened. But just before he fell, he did get pitched forward, almost like the bike had just stopped working, he'd hit a false neutral, or there was a weird jolt from him, which did very much look like a mechanical, but he's not made reference to that at all. Yeah. So I don't think that happened. How do you feel about? Everyone is very much exploiting Isak Gifting this week, from Yamaha to MXGP. Everyone is certainly trying to squeeze that Swede for all it's worth. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like, because ultimately these people, between like Yamaha give Isak very little support, MXGP, I mean, I guess MXGP is a different kettle of fish, but I don't know, I feel like now you care about Isak Gifting.
No, I don't think you can be that cynical, Lewis. Oh, okay. I think it's storytelling. Also, maybe it is cheeky of Yamaha to lean onto it. We don't know how much support they've actually given him, or maybe they've increased some support to the JK team. But obviously Isaac's delivering the results, and he's also figuring near the front of MXGP. So there might be a little bit more of a closer bomb of Yamaha. I mean, he might even be in the running for a factory seat for all we know. So I don't think you could scrub it that much. I mean, when he actually fell off, I imagine there was just sheer panic, and then just this crestfallen emotion of like, people are passing me and I can't start the bike. I mean, the range of emotion in the space of like 3 to 4 minutes must have been, enough for any kind of addict of any substance to, fully drink in. But I don't think we should. I think we should celebrate it. I think we should celebrate his performance. We should celebrate his season so far. And if anything, the very small percentages that I know of Isak, having interviewed him a couple of times over the years, I think he'll definitely be using it as some kind of motivation to show that it wasn't just because it was a Swede on Swedish soil that he was able to produce that speed. And also, just for a bit of context, I'm trying to raid my memory banks. I want to say the last Swedish rider to win a Grand Prix maybe be Peter Johansson in 2000 or 1999. Johnny Lind, I think, was riding in the 500cc category, but I think he took podiums but never won a GP. I apologize if I'm off on that one, but imagine if it is Johansson back in the last century. That's a long, long time for Swedish motocross fans. I mean, a whole generation, in fact, to wait for some glory.
So that was my cynical corner. Now, do you want to head to my pessimistic point?
Okay.
So, with riders like Gifting, all they ever tell you is you need to put yourself in a shop window. Being a consistent ninth place rider isn't going to do anything for you. You need to get out there, lay it all on the line, show what you can do, and crash and burn or whatever else, just prove your point. He did that, and in the most incredible fashion. He didn't need to go to that level. He exceeded the agenda or however you want to frame it. Ultimately, and we don't know, but I don't think anything comes of this for him. I don't think he gets a Yamaha factory seat. I don't think he gets a factory seat anywhere. I don't think that he gets more support, realistically. I don't think he gets any more support that's meaningful. So I used this expression on LVK, and apparently it was too
It's not another monkey thing, is it?
No, but you could argue that what Gifting's performance has done has opened up a pandemic of depression across the MXGP paddock, because if I'm one of the riders in Gifting's position who's who still has aspirations of reaching the top of the mountain, I'm kind of looking at it and going, well, if that doesn't get you anything, then I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what I'm shooting for. Because if the expectation is to do even more so than that, then I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately,
it's a slightly dramatic take, isn't it?
Okay, so more pessimistic point, more dramatic. God, I can't think of a D word. Dramatic.
But we have to remember that race managers and team managers are looking at riders for years and years and years coming up from the European categories, talent cups, whatever else. So, it's not as if Isak, has been off the radar and suddenly is burning bright. If anything, Lewis, I support your point because it highlights the short-termism of racing, how someone can be fairly obscure for a season or two, have a fantastic year, and then suddenly everyone has to talk about him or her for factory deals or whatever else. I mean, that's the frustrating part of racing. But, I think Isak and his attributes have been known to a lot of people inside the paddock. And it's a case of timing. That's the frustrating thing. And also kids looking at motocross careers or even professional sport careers just know that the decisions you make, everything is just based on the best opportunity you have at the time. I mean, there's been some not disastrous, but there's been some very serious sidesteps. I mean, Tommy Sell springs to mind. He had an offer from HRC, but loved the Kawasaki, wanted to stayed in like a satellite team setup. Didn't go so well for him in the Premier class. Christophe Pourcel, I think, was in a similar situation. Riders who have made somewhat alternative career choices and it hasn't really worked out. Maybe Ken Roxon with staying on a Suzuki. That's something a lot of people could understand, but wouldn't necessarily expect if there were bigger offers on the table. And Gifting, if there's one failure of this podcast, is that we're not super hyper connected to be able to know what maybe B or C tier riders, without being unkind, are going to be doing with their next career steps. But one thing is for sure,
just rummaging around like rats for scraps, aren't they?
Well, one thing is for sure, it's almost like the Sean Simpson school of racing. If you're happy in a setup, no matter how small it may seem, and you can sort of aspire towards those results now and again, then there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe Isak Gifting as teammate to Romain Febvre in factory Kawasaki colours is just something that's not going to work out. Maybe if he can stay in JK, hopefully on a much better deal, hopefully with some more technical support, then that could be a decent solution.
Yes, and to be clear, I'm not one of those people who's now like, give Isak a factory ride. I think he has proven to be inconsistent, a little unreliable. I do believe that a Calvin Vlanderen and others, Paul Jonas, are still better options than Isak Gifting. But I'm more looking at it from 1,000 feet view of folklore tells you, and I'm sure both of us have had these conversations with riders on that level, like, you just need to, like, if you just put yourself in the shop window, you'll get there. And I think for the first time, because it is so rare, for this to happen, as we said off the top, I think we've kind of seen proof that isn't the case at all. And therefore, I don't know what the answer is to what a rider like Isak Gifting or Kevin Horgmo or someone else needs to do to boost their career. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay. I mean, results are the strongest thing, but then also the rider's surroundings, the supportiveness of his group and his family, his character, whether he can develop stuff off the bike. I mean, I'm thinking of a rider like Tanel Leok, who rode for Ducati, who rode for Factory Kawasaki, who rode a Factory Suzuki. Tanner was a sort of a very meek kind of introverted person, but he would ride. He would, he would abuse the machinery to the point where, these teams saw value in the activities that he was doing. He wasn't, a marketing genius. He wasn't going to sell more Suzukis because of, his social media activity or his press work. But what he was going to do was throttle an RMZ 450 within an inch of its life and provide sort of information and data. Is Isak a good development rider? Does he give feedback technically? Maybe that's something where Calvin Verlanderen has, brings value, and the likes of Glenn Koldenhoff as well. Verlanderen was determined in Sweden because, he had taken 2 podiums this year and they'd only been in the sand, and he managed to get on the box, on hardpack. So I think that's a little kind of sort of check mark for him in 2025, and may also help towards keeping him in factory Yamaha colours. But I get your point. What is the criteria for stepping up a level in elite competition? And Gifting is creating a swirl of excitement around him. He just has to pray that people see that he has other characteristics that can make him, get a bigger and better deal.
The last person or people that I can think of who kind of were promoted not against all odds, but unexpectedly, Barragan, Dodika, those were sort of lower level teams are oh, hey, look, he's a factory rider now. I can't think of instances where it happened recently.
Also, what do the riders bring with them? Dodika had good personal sponsors.
I don't know that. Was he the source of Tekka or?
No. That was actually I believe the story with Tekka was that was a sponsor that came to the championship, but then were also interested in picking a team. And then Suzuki, Giuseppe Longo, the president of then Ustream, now in Front Motor Racing, kind of aligned Tekka with Suzuki.
Oh, you learn something new every day.
That could be. That was what I heard anyway. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Jonathan Barragan, for example, was Spain's best motocross racer since Javier Garcia Vico, with a lot more potential because he was that much younger. And Spain was a big market for motorcycles then at the end of the noughties. So he was of interest, of course, to KTM, especially. And KTM Spain is one of the most important subsidiaries inside Europe for the factory. So that all kind of came together.
He had the Harry Everts link, which helped, I'm certain. Yep. There isn't much. I'm sure we're forgetting some. Leave some in the comments if you know of any. But there aren't many examples of a rider... because even Sean Simpson, yes, Sean Simpson early in his career, he would count.
But I don't know about you, but MXGP and motocross generally just seems to be in a baffling state, because not only do we have the conundrum of Prado in the US, but seeing somebody like Valentin Guillot have this wonderful sort of career renaissance by making headlines in sort of AMA Pro National Motocross is cool to see. I don't think we really, Valentin's had sort of decent races, but also is kind of famed for his inconsistency. But he just seems to really be flavor of the month over in America, and he fully deserves it because he's a good guy and he's a good rider. But you just do wonder, in the narrative or the frame of MXGP, where would he stand? And same for sort of Benoit Paterel and probably most notoriously Jose Butron.
Yeah, like if Guillot had stayed in MXGP, would we have even talked about him? Probably not. He would have just been one of those, because for whatever reason in America, a 9th place is celebrated a lot more than it is in MXGP. And I honestly don't know the reason for that, other than maybe just because there's more media in America, so there's more love to go around. I don't know.
But look at career, again, that point about decisions and career trajectories. Look at Ben Watson. He's somebody I would put sort of on, maybe even a level above Isak Gifting in terms of the teams that he's represented and what he's achieved. Isak hasn't won a Grand Prix. Ben has.
1, 2.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, Ben's riding for Beta and, he's having troubles with rear brakes and braking chains and, just trying to do the best from sort of the niche of a niche manufacturer. And, it's not sort of working out. Sorry, Lewis. This has been a bit of a downcast podcast.
I'm really happy that we've headed into a pessimistic point really aggressively. So basically, everyone, yes, Sweden was amazing, but it ends there. the world's ending. We should have all enjoyed it while we could, because when Sunday came to a close, that was darkness falling upon us all. I'm telling you, Gifting's ride, as incredible as it is, it opens up a lot of depressing questions about the sport. I think it really does.
Did Jeffrey cheer you up?
Yeah, Jeffrey was solid. To be honest, I didn't expect Jeffrey to be that good at Sweden that soon. You know, like, that's quite a departure from where he was at Lommel, so raw and untidy and needing time on a bike. Who knew that 2 weeks would make such a difference? But then I guess he was only out for 6 weeks. He wasn't starting from zero. He just needed to rediscover that.
He could easily have had Coenen's card.
Yes. Yeah, Jeffrey somewhat become a good starter lately. Who knew?
Yeah.
A leopard can indeed change its spots.
What about him missing the nations team, Lewis? I mean, it was only recent. I think only this week I was listening to on a podcast saying you're looking forward to seeing Jeffrey and an Ironman and, you know, time to catch up and whatever else, and he's not even going to be there.
Okay, to be clear, when I said that on that podcast, I knew he wasn't going, but I didn't want to be the one who had to answer the questions. I don't know if he's so sad that he's not going.
Well, he's done Ironman, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Most famously.
I don't know if he's crying into his pillow. Let's say that. And I'm sure that if Jeffrey really wanted to be there, he could have slammed his fist on the table and made it happen. But
also, I would say right now that a team of Kai, Glenn Koldenoff, and Jeffrey Hurlings is going to be right up there with Team USA and Team Australia as favourites.
No.
Why not?
That no one is coming close to the USA and Australia.
I did like your take, by the way, that if Team USA don't win, then it would be a massive upset.
Thank you, Adam, because the American industry has bullied me, and all the Americans want is for you to talk positively about USA. So I did that, and now everyone's telling me I did it wrong, so I don't understand the assignment, Adam. I don't know what these people want from me.
Is Sexton still in?
Yes.
Right, okay. Well, assuming he's fit, him, Tomac, and Deegan, I mean, that's a scary team. It really is. Okay, Deegan's kind of like a rookie. I mean, you do have that rookie factor but then he's not exactly camera shy, is he, or attention shy? There's that to consider. And also the Lawrences are formidable, to say the least. But, I think if Team USA don't win an Ironman, then it's there is a large crack in the universe.
Yes, without doubt. On paper, and I think the best way to put it is this. Chase and Jet, comparable. Hunter and Eli, comparable. Deegan and Webster, Deegan's 20 points ahead. So there you go. That means that USA win. Like, it's really, in my mind, it couldn't be more black and white. Because that is how it's going to play out.
But do you know what else is going to happen at the Nations? Somebody like Sasha Coenen is going to rip a whole shot and then make a lead of like 9 seconds. And for once, he's actually going to hold on and win. Something really freaky like that. Or Lucas Coenen is going to get in the middle of a battle between Hunter and Eli. And then there's going to be a couple of points that one of the teams are missing. I mean, this is going to be these little kind of pockets of stories that are going to affect the final result.
I mean, it is sad to a degree because the Netherlands aren't sending their best team. France aren't sending their best team. Spain won't have their best team, even if Prado's on it. It's not Prado anymore, as sad as it is to say. So outside of USA and Australia, it is a lot of B teams. So England won't be sending their best team.
Goodness.
Max Anstey's not doing it, by the way. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm just going to say. Also, this really fucks me off. And there's another thing. We're getting up to the social media fail of the week. We're really building the hype for this. So there's been a lot lately, like, I heard, keep this to yourself, but I heard so-and-so could do this at the Nations. Keep this to yourself, but I heard that Team France is going to be this. There's no contracts involved. Who fucking cares? Like, we can talk about the Nations freely. A rider can go, yeah, I got asked to do it, I'm in. Why are we all treating this like there are really high-value contracts involved in the Nations? Like, we can... Yeah. There's nothing stopping us from all talking about it freely. But because this sport is so scared of talking out of turn, everyone's just like, keep this to yourself. Like, no, like I heard today, Team Italy's going to be Caroli, Adamo, and Bonacorsi. There you go. Job done. Look forward to the announcement. Team France will be Febvre, Vialle, and either Ferrandis or Patrell. Probably Ferrandis. There you go. Look forward to the announcement. Maybe it won't be. You know, like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about massive deals and riders have fines in their contracts if things get out. Sure, that is a different kettle of fish. But the nations, who cares?
The secrecy is ridiculous. I don't understand it. Maybe also in MotoGP, you know, if you ask Marc Marquez if he's going to be going back to Honda, he'll say yes or no, or his motivations for doing so, whatever else. It's not like a blight on Ducati. I'm puzzled about sort of the confidentiality that riders seem to guard in motocross, or why manufacturers insist that they can't talk about another one. I know there are maybe stricter rules when it comes to testing or appearing in other machinery because of the closer link between production bikes and, you know, race bikes, and just the affiliation that creates. I mean, one thing I've been listening to all these Prado talk, you know, it's going to look really bad for Jorge, but it's going to look terrible for Kawasaki as well. You know, they're kind of abject in MX2. You know, the bike seemingly is a nightmare for one of the best riders in the world for a 450. Thank God they have Romain Febvre actually, you know, scraping together something. But, you know, the PR effect is pretty negative. And I don't think if someone like Tom Vialle sits in front of a press conference and says, well, you know, actually, I've signed an MXGP ride, you know, for HRC because I want to return home. I see a better prospects for me to learn how to race on a bigger bike at the highest level. How is that going to be a disaster for Red Bull KTM, particularly within the space of the next 24 hours when Chase Sexton goes and wins the next national that's, you know, taking place that weekend? It is confusing.
Well, even reel it back a stage behind to that. You can't even get Tom Vialle to say, I'm going back to MXGP next year. Don't tell us who it's with. You can't, like, this weekend, I thought about this already, because on press day, I would love to say to Tom Vialle, how do you feel? Emotional? Like, is this? But yeah. He won't face that because he'll go, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, like.
Why didn't you ask him why he won't talk?
Because I think then I look like a dick and confrontational.
Why? No, of course you don't.
Adam, you don't follow the YouTube comment section, but I've come under fire recently for my Prado interviews because I've been trying that.
Lewis, I think you should brief the rider. Say, Tom, we're going to talk about, you know, why you can't talk, and say, you know, can you get an answer ready, and then explain it to people, and then maybe we can answer a lot of conjecture and questions right away.
Well, the thing is, I don't think the riders know why they can't talk. It's just second nature.
No. Well, but I mean, find someone perceptive.
In that department, I am starting to see some improvements. Like, I interviewed Barsha at the weekend, and I said to him, have you signed a deal for next year yet? And he went, no, I haven't even got a contract, but everyone knows my priority is to sign with Ducati, so I'm waiting on that. And, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, that's quite rare for this sport. And there was another rider recently who did something similar. But I did say to Prado at the weekend, I approached it very cautiously. I said, there are a lot of rumours about you at the moment. Care to comment at all? And he said, all I can say is I race for Monster Energy Kawasaki and we're trying to be better. And I thought, well, there's my headline. Stop the press. Anyway, well done to everyone else in MXGP. Vlanderin's third podium, and he deserves to be re-signed by Yamaha because ultimately he has been a bright light in a horrid season. Renault was a lot better, Colton off top 5 again. Geyser was back, had an issue, or a crash, I should say, with Isak Gifting in Moto 1, didn't finish. Tipped over in Moto 2, but overall was a top 3 rider and about what you'd expect from Tim Geyser in his return. And also brilliant. I think it was qualifying on Moto 1, brilliant to see Hurlings and Geyser battling it out because we've been starved of that for a while. And it really makes you realise that the Geyser-Hurlings rivalry has defined an era or a decade.
Yeah, great points. I have to apologise, certainly for me, maybe for both of us, because we didn't get round to finding out what kind of spec of bike Tim was riding.
Well, it looks like the current one.
I mean, Ruben Fernandez has been riding this new prototype. He wasn't very happy with it in the sand. MXGP goes again to the sand next week. I'm not too sure what configuration he was riding in Sweden, and with Tim expected to jump out and go to a Japanese rival, I don't know if Honda will be giving him the tasty sort of tech.
Yep, it definitely looks. I mean, I don't claim to be a technological mastermind, but from my not keen eye, my lazy eye, or whatever you want to call it, I couldn't see. I just realised that has a double meaning. Oops. From my eye, untrained eye, it looked like the current or the previous model. So there is that.
Okay.
Which brings us to our social media fail of the week. Hey. So Ben Watson.
It's not the same victim, is it? Oh,
no.
right, okay. Yeah.
So Ben
Continue,
Watson had an emotional weekend. Rode very well, in fact. In the first moto, he moved forward. I don't know from where, but he got up to 9th and was charging on and looks great, to be honest. Hardpack, not typically where you would expect him to shine, although he is a Trentino Grand Prix winner. And yeah, was having a great time, and then his rear brake failed and it all went to shit. And then in the second moto, his chain snapped and that was it, because you can't, oh, I'm trying that, sorry. Okay, I'm trying to get the Instagram up, but I was on something else, and it's the whole thing. I was on Reels. Anyway, so he took to Instagram, and Ben isn't the social media fail of the week. In fact, we should give Ben his credit. He put, no words for this weekend. I had a great feeling today, worked up to P9 in race 1, and then lost my rear brake completely. Race 2, my chain snapped after a couple of laps, 0 points this week. Arnhem up next. Thank you, team, at Beta Motor, at MRT Racing Beta. So as a rider, he's done exactly what he needs to do there. Explained the issues, kept it fairly vague, not thrown anyone under the bus, thanked the team even. Full marks, no comments, correct?
Yep,
okay.
Pretty standard.
So then, naturally, as would be the case with a professional rider, fans in the comments are commenting, which is kind of comes with the territory. Riding the bike too fast, it's falling apart. Ben deserves real factory equipment. Everyone can see the talent and the work you're putting in. Get off that bike. Stuff like that. You deserve so much better. People and products letting you down. What the fuck is going on with Beta? Haven't you ended up with no brakes at the last 3 GPs? Do they even have mechanics? One brilliant commenter who decided to bring a bit of comedic flair to the proceedings said, just start the race without a rear brake at this point. That's my favourite. And then out of nowhere, Beta USA commented a day later, and this wasn't in reply to anyone, this was just a standalone comment. Bash all you want. We as a company continue to work hard every race, every week. There are more than 500 proud Beta assembly line workers, engineers, distributors, and racers that are all proud of the brand. Shit happens. We deal with it. Now, my favourite is someone replied to that comment and said, at Beta USA, a rear brake upgrade would be great though. Cheers. But what the fuck? First of all, that's Beta USA, so technically nothing to do with the GP team, because to wind this back and give context even more so, I've come under fire from Beta USA because we've talked about Ben's issues and stuff, and the team really had it out for me and were complaining to people and whatnot, and it was quite a witch hunt. I spoke to them earlier this year and they were like, we've not had the problems you're talking about. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about the GPs. I know this. And they went, that's nothing to do with us. We are the American team. That's nothing to do with us. We don't know what they're doing over there. We just are doing this. You need to talk about how great we're doing. Which, them now commenting on this flies in the face of that, because now you're trying to get involved in a GP rider's Instagram post. So that's a weird juxtaposition. But would it have been too hard to, in this somewhat of a rant, comment or start your comment with, good job, Ben, or well done, Ben, or we'll get them next week? It's just very emotional.
Yeah, is it? It kind of smacks of somebody at Beta USA trying to do their job.
Do you want to say, hey, I know who did the comment.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm saying you don't have to name them, but I'm just saying.
No, I won't name them, but I'll tell you their position.
Right.
The owner.
The president?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So it's not like a professional thinking, I know, we can whip up some engagement here. But the thing is as well, are they saying to Ben, don't bash us? Or are they saying to the people making comments?
They can't, because Ben's not bashed them at all in that caption. He's been the poster boy of a professional. And that's why he's the apple of our eye on this podcast.
Utterly luckless.
It's just
it's
a bizarre comment.
Ben's rear brake won't be the first brake problem seen at Uddevalla, thanks to the high sort of ratio of stones. At one point, they were laying, don't know, kilos and kilos, I guess, tons, I don't know, of like smashed up shells onto the start straight to try and make the ground a little bit more moist and soft. So that's what I'm saying. The club do try to make modifications, but it can be a pretty gnarly track for the equipment as much as the riders.
But the reality is, and I don't know the exact statistic on it, but Ben has had countless rear brake problems at this point. I would argue, again, I don't know the exact number, but from what I know, I'd say on average once a GP for the last 6 GPs.
I wonder what he's using. I mean, he must be on wave discs. I mean, they're not going to be like Motor Masters or something like that.
Adam, I'm on the case.
Right.
We're moving on.
Okay.
We're trying to improve the situation because ultimately the mindset of shit happens, we deal with it, isn't going to get us very far. We're running out of time. There's only 4 GPs left. We're going to need a bit more action and shit happens, we deal with it. So
when it proves that debris doesn't only enter the rear brakes of KTMs.
Well, some would argue that Beta should have hit the brakes themselves and not posted that comment. Maybe their brakes failed and they posted a comment. No, but
I was expecting, for this little section of the show, Lewis, I was expecting a focus on Jago Hertz and his injured knee and some sort of social media post. So this was something a bit alternative.
No, but that is, you don't see this in any other sport. That is so unprofessional. Can we agree on that? So unprofessional. It's childish.
Yeah.
Like
it's emotional, isn't it?
Yes, and like you don't see that in any other sport. Like if I'm Ben, I'm blindsided and I'm like, wait, what? Have I done something wrong? You know? Like, and again, he's not. He's the apple of our eye. He's perfect.
Maybe he won't be riding a Beta in the USA in the coming months or seasons.
Well, the Nations, he's going to be on a Beta USA bike, I think.
Oh, wow.
Again, don't know if I should have said that, but it's the Nations. Who cares? There's no contractual obligations. I think Team GB, you know what? Fuck it. So I think, Italy's not been announced, but it sounds like it's going to be Carli, Adamo, Bonacorsi. Team GB isn't done. Max definitely isn't doing it. He opted out. It sounds like, if all goes well, it should be Ben, Dylan Walsh on a KTM, of all things, and Conrad. I still think there's a possibility that Tommy Searle works his way in there, despite his resistance. I think that we may see Tommy Searle back once again, because ultimately he is our best 250 rider, as sad as that is to say. And not big. Tommy's great. He's the apple of our eye on this podcast. We love Tommy. But realistically, there should be another MX2 rider available at this point in the game.
Yeah, how far back do you want to go? Maybe call Rob Herring. He can take a break from filming movie stunts. Jamie Dobb, ask if he can get his KTM 125 out. I don't know, Lewis. It makes me want to shake my head. Look, moving off quickly back to Italy, do you think Cairoli is a good pick? I mean, wouldn't Italy be better blooding someone like Latta?
Guadagnini.
Yeah. Guadagnini had a good ride for Ducati. And it's interesting reading Sua's comments on the Ducati in Sweden after a very tough Lommel GP, where he said that was the best version of the bike they've had yet this season. So maybe there has been some sort of progress with the development.
I do feel bad for Ducati because they both riders did look very competitive, and ultimately they ended up 17th and 18th, which I guess that's also an element of motocross that, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't quite get in MotoGP, because if you're in MotoGP, if you're in the window, you're maybe more likely to get a result as a result of that, you know? Whereas in motocross, shit can go wrong. As Beta put it, shit happens. We deal with it.
Yes. Goodness. The parity in the machinery is pretty close. I mean, like a satellite Ducati in MotoGP is more than capable of winning. A Kawasaki can win an MXGP as well as a Honda, as well as a Yamaha or a KTM. So you do have the feeling that, I mean, Isak Gifting on a pretty much like a production or like a Yamaha compared to the factory bikes can also lead a Grand Prix moto. So in that respect, there's similarities, but then, it's a completely different discipline when it comes to the window of tire performance and everything else. But yeah, you're right. It was a track again where you think the capabilities of the Ducati at the gate would have stood them in good stead. But then, Sua's big crash was one condition, and Guadagnini himself has been coming back from like a pretty torrid season. So again, just different sort of ingredients into that cake.
Is it bad that when Sua went down, my first thought wasn't, I hope he's okay. It was more, oh my God, his streak. He can't miss a GP. He has to keep going. Like, that was my immediate thought.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that okay? That is bad. Nothing against him.
Yeah.
He's the apple of our eye. We love Jeremy.
Yeah, but, I mean, he's okay. He was the first thing. I'm glad he got back on the bike because it did seem like he had a bit of a heavy hit.
But I didn't answer your question. I don't know. I mean, Italy specifically as a nation, I feel, have very much put an emphasis on promoting the young, giving them the experience,
Yes.
building them up. So I didn't expect Carli to be on the team for that reason. But I guess right now...
Good marketing, right?
And I guess right now, rider to rider, Carli is better than Guadagnini and the best pick. So I guess...
Yeah. Maybe it's also down to resources. You know, Ducati are willing to throw everything at it and, you know, give him a fully spec'd up sort of Desmo 450 MX with factory connection bits. Maybe that's a factor.
And and maybe, I don't know. Guadagnini has proven to be a little bit up and down. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a beta next year, to be honest. Speaking of that second seat is available.
So he takes his breaks.
Well, a lot of talk of brake problems and bike problems and whatnot, but everyone who's had an issue, I would recommend that they just head to pro-x.com for the best aftermarket parts available. And no matter what their issues are, of course, a lot can go wrong with motorcycles. You can have a wide array of problems. Prox or Pro-X, depending on your residence, have a multitude of parts that will solve your issues. And there's even a select your ride function. So for instance, if I'm Ben Watson and I go here and I click 2025 Beta 450 and click search and I wait for it to load, Pro Circuit use Prox racing parts, by the way, there's a chain. The first item, a chain, $115. Don't worry, Ben, that's on its way to you right now. Solved. Let's see, do we have a rear... Oh no, rear sprocket. Do we need a sprocket? That may go wrong. I'll send one of those as well. A front sprocket. Brake pad set? Does it need a brake pad set? No, well, mate, there's a long list. So there's 7 pages. So it's probably in there somewhere. Let's see. There's
I know they're a
chain.
sponsor, but is it also like a very critical failing of the brand that you have to pronounce it in 2 ways? I mean, it should just be one thing.
Well, it's more because of my insecurities. Because the Americans shout, it's Prox, Adam. It's Prox.
Right, it's Prox.
But
well,
the Americans, they shout at me. The American fans.
It's what the client wants. If the client says we're Prox, or, you know, then we're Proxy or whatever, then, you know, that's how we should say it. Because a brand should not have 2 pronunciations.
I'm not sure what chain Ben would like to use specifically, and already on page 1 there is 4 of them. So I'm just going to send Ben all 4, and then he can figure it out. So congrats,
the
Ben.
most expensive one.
Yeah, you know what? He deserves it. He's the apple of our eye. Ben, you have won a Prox Racing goodie bag, courtesy of us here at the MXGP Podcast Show. Great news. Let's wrap this up with MX2.
Yeah, we've criminally neglected the MX2 class again.
And to be honest,
we shouldn't be talking about the nations. We're weeks away. We can do a whole show on that.
We talked about Prado first and foremost. Speaking of the nations,
I know.
Speaking of the nations, I haven't ran this by you, but let's try and figure out where we do a Friday night podcast and a Saturday night podcast. Little one.
Yeah. Will you be able to turn it around? Because
I mean,
let's just face it, it's a bit of a travel track to Ironman. But,
well, we could. I was thinking we can either do it at a hotel or we can do it at a track and we can bring people in.
Well, we were going to do that last time, but then you didn't bother coming to Redbud.
That was an issue, Adam.
When's the last time we've seen each other at the Nations? You didn't come to Erne either.
No, you didn't go last year. No, I went to Erne. I was at Erne. We did the podcast every night at Erne. We were staying in the same hotel. We sat in the lobby.
Yes.
We went for dinner, Adam.
Oh, sorry. It's a short week, Lewis.
Shit happens. We deal with it.
Simon.
Yeah. So clutch ride from Simon equally. I was a little bit not concerned, but, you know, eyebrow raised after the first moto and even the qualifying race where he couldn't capitalise with a win. Second moto once again solidified his championship lead, solidified his position at the head of this class. Now, the crux here is I said or theorised pre-Uddevalla that Kai had to gain points, otherwise I thought it was over. Now, Kai didn't gain points, but he lost minimal points. He lost only 2 points to Längenfelder at Uddevalla, which is effectively nothing. So I don't know how I feel about this title fight. I don't think it's over. Längenfelder, if you want percentages, I think there's a 90% chance Längenfelder wins this. But let's stay in this state of flux, this wait and see mode, and see what happens at Arnhem, because as proven by Finland and Lommel, there is an opportunity for Kai to cut this from 40 to 20 sort of range. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. I think in Lommel, Kai hit the most beautiful kind of like cross-court forehand, right into Simon's side of the court. And Simon's just like battered it right back across by, taking this victory in Sweden. But now sort of Kai needs to scurry across and sort of smash it back, because we'll be going to Arnhem and back into the sand. So if he rides anything like he did in Belgium, then Längenfelder is going to have to go from thinking, okay, I took the victory, red plate's looking good, to again being defensive and again taking a different strategy, kind of like we said with Febvre and Coenen. Even more so because De Wolf was phenomenal in Lommel. So yeah, Lewis, it's going a little bit back and forth like that, and that's why I think Turkey, it could go either way. And then of course China and also Australia may be unknown quantities depending on weather and track prep. So yeah, it's going to be a big week, I think, for Simon, just to try and make sure that things don't go badly in the sand. And sadly, I think for Andrea Adamo, the points he lost in Sweden make things a little bit more out of reach for the Italian. I think he has to go like hell for leather, go for broke, and try and win motos now to claw back any points, because it's going to be really tough for him. But MX2 is slowly kind of narrowing down, into sort of like a duel. But Adamo is still there, of course. He only needs to have like a Febvre type GP, and the others have a bit of a Coenen GP, and then it sort of mixes up again.
There's been a lot of talk of after Arnhem that Simon has had heat issues in the past. Now, I don't think they're so prevalent, but there's been some murmuring about that. And then also the fact that last year in Turkey and China, Kai got second overall at both events and Simon was third. So that would lead you to believe that Kai is better at both of those circuits if you want to go down that route. So there's some quiet optimism out there that yes, Arnhem will favour Kai, but beyond that, Kai, the final couple of rounds do suit Kai more so.
I think both of them, Kai's fitness, and he's just a little bit more robust. But then I like the way that Simon's been riding this year. I think, mentally he's sort of faced the adversity that's been thrown at him, and he's managed to sort of come up, and he's managing to take the positives from it somehow. So I think, it's really sort of aligning pretty well for him after Sweden. I mean, that was a surprising win, I think, considering the overall results. But then, it wasn't exactly a banner GP for anybody. The results cards swung quite heavily, towards one decent moto and one poor moto for quite a few riders. I mean, it's a shame the likes of Camden McLennan couldn't really make a bid for the podium. I don't think his starts were okay, but nothing special. It was good to see Liam Everts sort of riding quite quickly again.
Impressive in his return.
The same for Thibaut Benistan. I mean, he's been a little anonymous recently, but he also looked pretty good on the Yamaha. So, it's kind of, I think MX2 it's really hard to say because it's still quite tight, isn't it? But then, Coenen and Febvre as well, it's got even so much closer to the point where, a couple of bad starts and an off weekend creates this sudden chasm in the standings.
Yeah, I think that the biggest credit to Simon is he's been knocked down and gotten back up each time. After Finland, he got back up. After Lommel, he got back up. So, although you could argue that this has been an emotional roller coaster the last month or so, and actually great practice for the final stages of the championship, and Simon has weathered the storm, responded, not been despondent. He's handled it well. So that gives me faith. Honestly, at this point, I'm putting all my money on Simon and Romain to bring this thing home, and I wouldn't be surprised if both titles are wrapped up in China. And we go to Australia with nothing on the line.
60 points ahead. That's quite a lot.
Oh, no, sorry. I was thinking 50. I'm still in the old school mentality. That's not going to happen. I forgot. I forgot. That's my bad.
I mean, it would be quite something to have a 60-point lead going to the final race. But yeah, it's really... I wouldn't want to say one way or the other because but that's also great because every single motor now has this extra resonance, this extra weight. You can't afford to start badly, you can't afford to make mistakes, you can't afford to get arm pump. that's what's going to make it pretty gripping. So yeah, full props.
Anything else we need to talk about?
Yeah, just a quick mention for Jan Pansar again, second best KTM in MXGP, and very much in the mold of Isak Gifting. Perhaps probably with even more odds to face, you could say, in terms of setup and everything going on around him. And back to your much earlier question, Lewis, of what riders have to do to put themselves in the shop window. Pansar's definitely done that this year. I mean, if he goes into 2026 without any more support or no offers or whatever else, then I think the sport might be sort of slightly fucked. Well, or Jan just might be a complete nutcase and nobody wants to go near him.
Well, let's figure that out. But no, so Isak, Kevin, and Jan have all done things very differently this year, but ultimately they've all achieved the same thing, which is prove their worth. And ultimately, yes. I think all of them are going to end up in the same positions. So I don't know. There's many ways to skin a cat. We've seen that, and none of them have worked. The cat is still furry.
Not everybody can win GPs. Not everybody can be world champion. So surely as a professional racer with ambition, the two things you can do is, one, make a living from your passion and your sport, and secondly, reach a performance ceiling that you would just love to hit. Whether that is winning a moto or leading a moto or taking a podium or finishing top 5, whatever. I think if Jan Pansar and Isak Gifting can look back on 2025 and think, right, okay, maybe I didn't make as much money as I wanted, but I hit my performance ceiling, then that's a massive sense of achievement.
Yeah. But then what? So this was my big thing leaving Sweden, and I actually had a conversation with a rider about this on Sunday morning. The sense of achievement is great. But I think it's quite clear from Gifting that emotion, well, I think we know this, emotion is what drives these athletes, or any athletes. And emotion helps you unlock another level. The emotion of the occasion of Uddevalla took Isak to an even better level than what he was previously, which was already pretty damn good and exceeding of his own expectations. So how do you unearth that emotion? Like, if you, going back to the pessimistic thing, if I'm Isak or I'm Kevin or I'm Jan, I'm kind of heading into 2026 going, okay, I don't know what I need to do, and therefore, as a result of that, my emotion, I'm not as invested, maybe that's a bad way of putting it, but I don't feel as emotionally attached to what I'm doing because I don't believe as much that what I'm doing matters for my future. So then where does your motivation come from?
Yeah. Well, that's why I think you hear team managers and stuff say, yeah, this is going to help for motivation, because you automatically assume that everybody racing professionally has 100% motivation every single time they climb on a motorcycle, and it just can't be true. You were on the Pulp MX show recently. I think Alden Baker, sort of, you had him on the line, you were interviewing him, and he made a worthy point saying you can't expect these athletes to be fit and ready to go 31 weekends of the year for SMX. Same for MXGP, the 20 GPs and 60 race starts. I mean, that is a lot of racing. That's a big amount of time that you have to be at your best self. I think SMX is over-exaggerated. I mean, I think it is too much for riders to take on. I mean, the case of sort of Aaron Plessinger is a case in point. But then the same sort of challenge in terms of cross cultures, traveling, whatever else for MXGP applies. And, Isak Gifting might have trouble surging or sort of sourcing the well for Arnhem compared to Uddevalla, but you'd think just that taste of being P1 and hearing all the shouts, seeing the checkered flag even, will just sort of spur him on a little bit.
Yeah, I think everyone's different. Some people that's enough. Other people need the motivation exterior. Like even I know of a rider at the moment who wants more from their team in the sense of just like getting them fired up and motivate and making the rider feel like their result matters to the team, because the rider feels like the team around them really actually couldn't give a fuck. And fourth place or 10th place, who cares?
From what I've seen over the many years of covering the sport and also just motorcycle racing in general, is that chemistry is a big thing. The relationship between mechanics, management, riders, what's created inside the paddock has a big contributing factor, but you don't really write about it or you don't talk about it because it's so hard to see it and measure it. And, that it can vary, of course. People do lose their motivation. They're having a bad streak of results. They can't sort out the bike, whatever else. It's so psychological racing because it's an individual sport on the track, but then a big team thing behind it. So that's what makes it kind of so fascinating as well.
Yeah, and that's what I enjoyed about reading the recent award-winning book
Award-winning? Blimey.
Insider stories from Motorcycle Grand Prix, right? Or did I
Thank
get
you
that
again
wrong?
for the plug.
Did I put that the wrong way round?
No, you said it fine. And it's going to be in the US from February 2026.
But in all seriousness, it was a serious point. Knowing nothing about MotoGP, with the different chapters, the different storytelling, the different personalities, I could really feel how invested teams were in riders and riders were in teams in different scenarios, like just with their backgrounds. And you could even hear it or not hear it because you were reading, but you could sense it in the wording that people were using to describe their athletes or getting the most out of them or whatnot. Or even like, I forget who it was, because it was an early chapter, talking about the VR46 Academy and how, oh God, this is retesting my memory. Was Pecco Bagnaia in the academy?
Yeah, Pecco Bagnaia.
And he struggled with it more than the other rider who I forget because he didn't do well with being so detached because he was further from home and whatnot. And the other rider was saying how it was easier for him than the other rider, and even easier for him than Bagnaia. And you could you could sense in the wording how the emotion of the situation and how it would impact things, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come closer to motocross. There's a reason why Claudio De Carli's team is so prolifically successful. Is because they managed to tap into the mentality of the rider perhaps better than anybody else. Also, Rebel KTM with Ian Harrison and Roger Da Costa in the US, they're able to sort of create an environment where the rider has everything they need, and maybe it's just not as prominent in other squads. Of course, it doesn't work 100% of the time, but if your hit record is pretty high, and in the case of the Carli, I mean, they had, Claudio Federici winning 250cc GPs. They had Tony Cairoli, of course, that era, helped Ken Dodika win GPs, helped Glenn Coldenhoff to a phenomenal amount of consistency. The Coenen brothers, Längenfelder, Jorge Prado. There's like an endless list of different people, different nationalities, and they're able to sort of really elevate them each time. Mattia Guadagnini, I mean, they essentially made his career in MX2. So don't dismiss it lightly. The right choice of a team and the environment for somebody like Isak Gifting or Jan Pansar might be just a bigger factor than you realize.
Yes, and in a similar vein, commenting on Instagram saying shit happens, we deal with it, probably isn't a great way to, evoke.
Well, at least it's in the US. It's far away from Ben, isn't it? So,
yep. Well, I'll make sure it stays that way. But no,
until
and I think
Ironman, at least.
I think that I'd imagine that I might get called into a meeting at Ironman, probably with Ben, which would be great for me. I'd love to sit down with Ben. If that's probably the only way he'll talk to me. And I also think that this comes back to how, and maybe this is going to where I lose everyone. I think the effort that teams put into social media and the way they present the riders and the way they present what they're doing is important, because it just makes everything seem that little bit more critical, if I'm a rider, maybe this is really bad to say, but if I'm a rider and I post on Instagram after my race and I have 2 comments, I'm kind of like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm a professional rider. No one gives a shit, I think, and so even going back to the fans now, I think the fans can do more than they realise with showing their support. This is such a minor part of the equation, but I think it all links together to make a bigger picture. I really do. I think everything has a place of importance depending on personalities and whatnot.
And social media could be seen as like a spawn of the devil in many aspects, but it's good that it provides a forum for public figures like athletes to be able to explain stuff. I remember like a colleague who used to write for Motorsprint, the biggest weekly magazine in Italy and Europe, maybe even the world at one point in terms of the circulation numbers, telling me that he would regularly have Italian riders in the paddock, harassing him for him not writing about them enough. But if you have, say, 3 pages to write about a Grand Prix and there's 6 Italian riders and you can't really get into the deep story of why one had an off weekend, then, that's obviously a limitation. And, said rider can now sort of take to his Instagram or Twitter or whatever and say, yeah, I had a shit weekend because my brakes didn't work. So it's useful in that degree. Yeah, like those comments I read out on Ben's Instagram, I think those are motivational. Like, people care. People want me to do better. Yeah. Right, wrapping up. Finally, though, you don't have to answer this, but I don't think we've ever spoken about this, so just to put it out there, Triumph won't be in 450s next year in MXGP. Yeah. They will be in America. 2027, they are locked in for MXGP, and allegedly, Mick O'Hara will be on the 450 in 2027.
allegedly.
So in the US in 26.
Yes.
Okay. I wonder why they're doing it that way around.
Allegedly. I don't know. And to be honest, I've asked a few people and no one really knows. Because when I heard that 450s weren't going to run in MXGP, I just presumed the same would ring true in America. But that's not the case. In fact, I believe they're going to have 2 450s outdoors in America next year. So I don't know why that would be. Because if anything, I would argue that it would make more sense to do it the other way around. And run it in GPs because you're closer to base, more time to test, more time in a weekend to build a program. It's for full factory effort. But yeah, no, I don't know why. And no one seems to know why either. I think
maybe it could just be a resources thing, and asking the current team to be able to take on another program with 2 more bikes could be too much. Maybe there's more scope in the US.
There have been, although the 450s are going to run under the same team in America, there have been murmurs that Triumph were entertaining a second team to run 450s in GPs. I don't know why they would have to do that. But even now, from what I know, allegedly, for 2027, I think it will all run under one awning. So from what I know, allegedly, there's potentially a very weird setup coming for 2026, which would make even less sense. But I can't say anything more about that. Allegedly.
Well, we were just slagging off riders for not being transparent, Lewis. Please don't, classify yourself in the same bracket.
This is where someone told me not to say anything.
Ah, okay, right.
Like the person who told me will listen to this and will probably be pissed off at me for saying as much as I did.
All right. Sign off. We'll be back. We've got another GP next weekend.
Thank you to Polisport and Prox Racing Parts for all of their support of the MXGP Podcast Show. Interest for 2026 is already ramping up. Got some exciting things in the works, I must say, so maybe more to come from the MXGP Podcast Show. Maybe some new items. Maybe we expand this empire. Who knows? If you'd like to be involved, get in touch. We'd love to have you. We can have you title sponsor the social media fail of the week. But for now... I've been Lewis Phillips, that's been Adam Wheeler, and we will see you in 7 days' time to discuss the Grand Prix of the Netherlands. See you then.